To order. Everybody's here and it's been posted as required by state law. We'll take a moment of silent prayer and pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, minutes. Did everybody have a chance to look at the minutes from July? Does anybody remember what we talked about in July? Yeah, well, I did too, but I just like, oh yeah, all right, I think that's what we talked about. Is everybody good with them the way they're posted? And we'll leave them as read. 3A, project schedule and phasing update. Whoever wants to take the floor.
Thank you all. Steve Canales, I'm facilities project manager. I will start off here just with a brief. You have the report in your packet, but I'll start off with a brief overview of where we're at in terms of project schedule and with the internal phases. So our exterior work for the year is concluded. As of today, actually, we reopened the parking lot out there this morning. There's some surfacing and finished landscape work that'll have to finish in spring. But for now, I'll get a little more in detail on that in the parking lot report. But for now, the lot's open. It's safe for everyone to use. Hopefully make wayfinding between the Justice Center and Government Center at least a little easier for the public for now. Interior work also underway at a little bit of a slowdown right now. There were a few areas that the contractors identified some materials that might potentially contain asbestos. So we hit the brakes and brought in North Star Environmental for an environmental report. That report was handed over to the general last week, and 10-day waiting period from the DNR for the permit to be issued. So that's what we're waiting on right now, but they have us tentatively scheduled for that to start in a week or so. I'll get a little further in that on the change order report too. But we're currently working with the contractor to minimize any future delays in pushing back the end dates of each phase, particularly in regards to opening those public facing departments that were planned to be opened in late spring, early summer next year.
Okay. Any questions? I have one. So you talked about delays. How are you like behind, or is there a lot of room to catch up?
There is some room to catch up right now. We're at about 2 weeks. I think we'll plan on probably being about 3 weeks behind total once the abatement work is actually done. And like I said, I'll have some better detail on that when I get into the change order report later. But yes, we are behind, but there is some let's call it wiggle room.
Yes.
And we are working with the contractor to get creative wherever we can to create some more space in that schedule.
Okay. Sounds good. Nobody else has questions?
I'm gonna this is the first time I'm getting a chance to look at the report, so I'm gonna maybe come back to that later.
Okay, sounds good.
Looked last night, it wasn't.
Supervisor Gallitz?
Yeah, Chair, thank you. So the built-in leeway, I guess, a little time. So the public facing departments, as you alluded to, they have no concerns about access for public access, et cetera.
Not at the moment, no. We've done our best internally and I guess externally on the outside of the building too, to provide as much signage as possible for the general public. Obviously, that's only effective to a certain point, but we have taken some feedback from particularly the treasurer and the clerk's office to try and help everybody get through the building as best possible right now.
Right. Muscle memory, you got to change.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, you get into a habit, it's hard to break.
Okay, seeing no other questions, and we'll move on to the parking lot update. Or is that, I mean, you kind of covered that.
That's
already, right?
so I can get a little more in depth for you guys. And obviously if you have any questions, certainly stop me along the way. There were a few delays along the way out there. We did have our private run of the water main broke 2 separate times once in October, once in November. So that did cost us a week and change probably in total. There was a missed elevation during design for a curb that was poured that had to be taken back out and re-poured to the correct elevation. We did have some contaminated soils that were discovered on the east side of the lot. That report or that sampling took us about a week to get back from the environmental company. So there was some fairly significant setbacks along the way. And then the early 10 inches of snow this year didn't do many favors. So we do have the binder course down in that parking lot and temporary striping out. So it's safe to use for the winter, as I alluded to earlier. But
Sure.
we will have to come back and actually lay the surface coat and the permanent pavement markings in spring, and then finish pouring some concrete sidewalks out in those islands and do all the associated landscaping at that point.
Where's the global warming when you want it?
Yeah, right.
Right? Any questions regarding the parking lot? All right, seeing none, we'll go to security update.
I will hand it off to Scott then. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Potentially you've been kind of watching this a little bit. I know Supervisor Schwab's a little more in tune on this as well, and on public safety, where this has been going. You may recall that this committee had several questions on security and what that's going to look like in the future, going through the main lobby here with the main people and coming through security. And when people are either going into the lobby, going through security, can they go around, basically around the security desk to come back come back into the government center? And by doing so, could there be different rules between the buildings? And the county attorney has said, yes, they're considering this two different buildings. You can go ahead and say that if they don't allow glass water bottles into the Justice Center, they can still allow glass water bottles coming into the government center, stuff like that. And so it was determined that that went through the Public Safety Committee to look at the security there. They then in turn decided to create a task force that would look at security, and that task force was able to meet on December 2nd. And then inside your report, and I do apologize for all the reports being delayed. That is 100% on me, and I make sure we'll do a better job of the next building committee meeting to get those to you well ahead of time. And so you'll see in front of there, the task force that made up, they did meet on December 2nd to look at security. They're going to meet again, currently scheduled for January 13th to meet again. They would then report back to the Public Safety Committee, and then they would then give the recommendation, most likely up to the county board, to decide on what that security looks like. So there's the same questions that this committee looked at months and months ago, basically the same questions that are going right to that task force, going back to public safety and then the county board to make those decisions. So, so you really today, we can discuss those things. You can, well, Mr. Schwab here being chair of that committee can certainly take those concerns back to his committee directly. I can certainly write up a report on those if so be it. But right now it's going through the task force. So I would ask you to let them do a little bit of the work, if you will. You'll still have another chance at either at public safety or at the county board if you have concerns. So there's everything from looking at concealed carry. What does that look like? They're looking at, do they have that railing and everybody goes through security, or just only the Justice Center goes through security? So there's some decision points that do need to be made on this. We are not there yet, as you know, that we got to get down to the first phase first. And that's where we can take other areas, so that area can be rebuilt for the clerk and register of deeds, and then that area get rebuilt. So they're definitely on schedule. If they have a decision in January and the public safety takes it up in February and then the board in March, that's plenty of time, even if that gets delayed till April or May, before we actually have to have that decision being made by the county board. So there is a little bit of time here to do that. We are looking at having the railing. It's in a shop drawing phase right now, still created, because let's say this committee and board decides everybody goes through security, put that railing up. We can put that railing up, or decide, nope, we're going to keep it separate. We just don't put the railing up. We still have it. A future board could certainly change your mind, and we can put the railing up at a moment's notice while having put up something ugly, and railing is pretty easy to maintain and to keep secured in the area to put up. So if you have any questions on the security, you'll see we did a security report to public safety, which is in your packet from October 15th, which kind of highlighted a couple of those policy questions that would come before them. The task force is currently being, and if up on the screen, I can certainly, if you can, because it has been a while to look at what that vestibule looks like. If I could pop it up on number one. that is in your packet that you'll be coming in the main door. Again, we'd have just stanchions out there to go through. That railing I talk about is in the middle portion here. Again, if you put the railing in, everybody goes through security and then can not go into the Justice Center, come back to the Government Center. Or you could just not put the railing up and only people going to the Justice Center going through security. They can come in the door, go to your right, go to security, just as it is right now. And so that's really decision points that need to be made. Putting up there with the, for instance, one of the concerns is the farmers that are going to go up to natural resources, right? A lot of them have probably had, as was pointed out last meeting, probably had pocket knives in their pants before they could probably walk, right? And so right now what staff does out there, they say, okay, instead of having them go back out to the car, they actually put it on the counter and said, all right, you're not a threat. Just go ahead and put your pocket knife down right here. Go about your business. And when you come back, don't forget your pocket knife, right? The sheriff uses a very common sense approach to those people. So that might be an option as well, knowing that there won't be some major inconvenience potentially if they do have to go through security. So there's a lot of questions, a lot of intricacies to talk about. Staffing is one of them that was discussed at length at the county board level and stuff as far as the budget is concerned. And so if you have to everybody go through security and you have a night meeting of county board or even the chief elected officials are coming in here, everybody goes through security. Security is going to be open for them. Weekend hours for the clerk and register of deeds, treasurer has to be staffed. So there's a lot of questions that are being thrown out there that the task force, public safety, as well as the county board members here will have a chance to talk about more.
Is there a possibility that when you were talking about putting up the railing or not, is this being built so that if we ever want to tweak it, it'd be easy enough adjustable, or is this a
Yes.
big?
Right now, we're looking at roughly 8-foot sections.
Okay,
Maybe it might be 10, but basically just bolts to the floor,
okay,
right? That it would have a series of bolts in the floor.
Sure.
And if we got to remove it, we just remove the bolts, fill in the
and you
holes,
got access.
and we're done. Yep. And
Perfect.
if we don't put it up at all, we don't put it up, we come back in, we drill the holes, put the bolts in, and away we go. So it's a pretty simple, it's just a metal rail with a little
Yeah.
cap on it. So
So modifications can be done, no huge costs.
yes,
That's good.
yes, the concern would be that a future board, whatever this board decides, could reverse it and go the opposite direction.
That's
we
what
gotta
I'm
make sure
thinking, just in case things go sideways here.
Right, whichever way you consider sideways, right? So, yep.
Exactly. Any,
So, Chair, I know we have two chairs here, Mr. Schwab for Public Safety and the Task Force. So I'm not sure where this would be appropriate, but since we're talking about this here, have we, as part of that task force, defined a problem statement and narrowed it down? Because if we're talking about public access and whether if it's purely should the general public as a whole, everybody get screened, or is it that we want to ensure the Justice Center has screenings, so I'm trying to understand which is it and where should the focus of it, and maybe you've already addressed this. But even if I just put on my regular citizen's hat and someone coming into this facility, do I feel like an oppressive thumb if I'm just going to go to get my passport renewed or get my tax or whatever, and every time I got to go to security, do I feel like, hey, does my government have my back? Don't they trust me? So what problem are we trying to solve for? If we have instances of weapons, whatever, or threats, the rest of the public building access, the public departments, then do you do that? Or is it just the public safety is the biggest one? So part of me is like, are we asking the right questions to have the task force focus and solve? And I suspect that's the case, but my 2 cents worth.
fair enough. I'm not sure how to answer that, except for that we did have a long conversation on security back in the beginning, right? With the meeting that I missed that Supervisor Krebs took over for me. I believe the sheriff was here and they discussed that whole thing.
All
So
those discussions.
The Justice Center is pretty well defined, right? There
Yeah.
are, that's
I'm not
that's
talking about
correct. Yep.
addressing any of
Yep.
that and
Right.
keep that in play, but
Mhm.
for the rest of it,
Yes.
what message do we want to send to our constituents as they access their building? not our building, their building.
Right. No, then,
I would definitely say if you have an opinion to make sure you're engaged when public safety comes back, because it's still a task force, right? And they could take those task force recommendations and certainly follow them or diverge a little bit from them too,
Mhm.
right? So that you will have a chance, I would ask you to engage in that as early and as often as possible if you have comments on it.
Yeah, with Supervisor Schwab. And again, this will come back to the full board. Supervisor Schwab, your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Public Safety Committee was engaged and ready for a vigorous discussion on November 19th, when the request was made that a task force be appointed, and that process had already begun when we met. And so, we haven't really discussed it since, because we'll wait for the task force to bring its report. So that's where we're at.
Also, if we can keep in mind too, Supervisor Gallett said, when this came up before, we weren't just talking about the safety of the public coming in here. We were also talking about the safety, I believe, of the employees here, right? And how they felt with people coming in angry, paying tax bills or something. So Supervisor Schwab.
Mr. Chairman. We did hear the testimony of several of our constitutional officials who expressed a strong preference for having security at the east entrance, and took that into consideration as well as the consideration of preserving the freedoms of our constituents. So all that is being considered.
Chairman Schleif.
Thank you. I did talk to several members that were on that first committee. I couldn't make the meeting, but by all accounts, it was a very productive meeting, a lot of information exchanged. And as you can see, our Register of Deeds is the chairman of that committee. So if you want to find out more on it, perhaps a conversation with her is in order. Thank you.
Good advice. Any Supervisor McCulloch?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So yeah, I like what Scott had talked about earlier when he was talking about, really a pragmatic approach with regard to people coming in. And so someone has a utility knife because they always carry that with them. I fall into that category, a lot. And I remember from the first meeting, certainly the staff here has concerns, about safety. I want to make it clear that, we have to be careful of that, because really every job has inherent risk, right? I drive a lot for my job. That is, risky, right?
Mhm.
So there's lots of things in life that that involve, risk, and some at a higher level than you think. And I understand the concern for their exposure to the public and the people that are unhappy, but during the course of a lot of my days, I go into areas or, that they're not, they're not safe areas, right? So I go into, places like that, and that's a little part of the job. And so you have to be able to, I hope that when this comes together, that there's a pragmatic, reasonable outcome to it. I have no doubt that that'll happen, but the idea that we want to eliminate all risk, or for staff and infringe on people's, just like Scott talked about somebody coming in with a pocket knife or something like that, that really has to be, looked at closely, right? And so, I think there's a win-win here for everybody, but everybody's going to have to give a little bit.
Right.
Okay.
Agreed. And we'll have more opportunities to make those arguments too as we move along, it sounds like.
Yeah, I just wanted,
Yep.
to put that out there so that everybody understood that, for the staff here, we're not going to be able to eliminate all possible risk
Yep.
that can happen to that. But every job has, whether you're just a popcorn salesman or, Brian out on his job, he's got significant risks, that happen, everybody, and at Mike's company, they have a whole department that's just, there to mitigate risk, right, Mike? So, I mean, you have those, but still things, things can happen. But you have to be reasonable about those. And I hope that when this comes together, that everybody looks at it in that light, right? We're not here to eliminate all sources of risk that somebody
Sure.
may be susceptible to. You just can't live a life, you can't run a business like that and you can't operate like that, right? You can do your
Mhm.
best, so, yeah.
Fair enough. Any other questions? Sounds good. Well, seeing no other questions, we'll move on to exterior signage update. Boy, everybody's coming up today.
We're all gonna do a little bit, yeah.
All right.
So I'm Kara Herdrich. I'm the facilities manager.
Mhm.
And as part of the bigger project, we are going to be updating our exterior signage. We are going to be putting a new monument sign in, and then we're going to be doing post and panel replacement. The really great thing is the changes that we're putting in place to bring the public in through a single entrance will reduce the amount of signage and the amount of signage that doesn't really give good direction on our campus. So this what you're looking at here is one of the post and panel signs, very similar to what we have outside right now in front of the buildings. They're getting a facelift with our new colors and logos. And we're also reducing the number of signs that we have with this. So you can see those. And then we are putting a monument sign out at 33. But that's in front of that one's in front of the government center. Yep, that one there. That one needs a little bit of updating. You'll see it's got the Herbert J. Tenney's designation on the bottom, but it's very, very difficult to see. So they're working on some font modifications for me there. But generally speaking, that's what that sign will look like. And then I think the next one is, then there's the monument sign that'll be at 33 and Rolf's, kind of angled out towards there to kind of bring you into the campus. There'll be some directional signage that includes visitors notification, but it's a much simpler, cleaner signage plan than what we have today. So we're excited to get that in place. This was done in conjunction with the county executive as well as the county clerk. Have been working with me on these designs and think we have a really nice, aesthetically pleasing and consistent with what our campus looks like sign package here. Oh yeah, so timing wise, we are going to be going out to bid early in 2026 for this. The intent is to have all the signs installed just shortly before we close the west entrance and bring everybody into the east entrance of the building, because it'll be very specific about where visitors are to park and everything. So those will be unveiled when we move the county clerk, the treasurer, register of deeds. That particular weekend is when those will be unveiled.
And since you just received these today, if you have any comments, if you could get those to us over the course of the next maybe 3 weeks or so by the end of the year, we would be happy to incorporate those comments into the plan set. Again, it hasn't been bid out yet, so we got a little bit of time here. That's why I wanted to get in front of you now, so you have time. I just apologize, didn't get to you in the packet at a time, but at least you have it now in your packet that it has been looked at by staff. It's our recommendation. We can also include the map of the locations as well. After this meeting, we can get that out to you too, so you know exactly where each one of these signs and location that they're going to be placed at. And then if you have any comments, if you could get those to us by the end of the year, we can try to incorporate those into the final bid set.
Yeah, to that point, if you look at particularly the post signs, like if you go back to the courthouse one, they're the sign company, so they put that one in front of the sheriff's office, but it says the county courthouse. We're going to be making it's going to go in front of the courthouse. So know that they're struggling with understanding our building and where to place those signs, but we'll be doing some field placement when they come to do the install.
So the only question I have is it's got the $100,000 budget, right? So but that's something that was already part of the budget, the original budget, right?
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about budgets in a little bit, and that'll be included in that. I mean, I'll
Gotcha.
kind of give you an overview of how that all came about.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions on the signage? Everybody good with what we have so far? Okay. Sounds good. Well, then we can move on to.
Great, thank you.
Oh, yes, thank you. We can move on to change order update. And I hope you got good news. I'm back. I hope you find it to be good news.
Okay,
So to date, the county project team has approved 9 change orders in total. A mix of some that were owner requested for, work in the field that we were kind of doing in a certain area that made sense to, hey, while you're doing this, let's try to make, we're doing X, let's do Y also to make it better for, when we get to down the road to doing Z.
sure.
I could certainly elaborate on that more if anyone has any deeper questions on that. But our change orders have totaled roughly 51,000 in changes so far, with more than half of that amount, about 27,000 coming just from the abatement that I referred to earlier. So that's the biggest piece of the change orders right now is that asbestos abatement. So as I mentioned earlier, we did already send the final environmental report off. Integrity is doing our abatement work. They've got some familiarity with the site from past projects that we've had them work on. We are on the schedule tentatively for December 17th to start abatement work, and we anticipate that'll all be wrapped up the first full week of January. And the plan is to have, as soon as one area is done, to have subcontractors kind of come in behind that and get back on the horse, so to say.
Well, that's good news. If I remember correctly, we're well within our contingency yet. So,
We are within it so far, yes.
so far. Supervisor Gallitz?
Based upon the findings of this potential or confirmed asbestos phase 1, you talk about being ready for testing for phase 2 or 3. Is there any reason to believe, based upon what we found in phase 1, that could be replicated in 2 and 3, and then therefore we could anticipate some additional expenditures?
Yes, great question. We did have, we shared the original building plans with North Star Environmental when they were here. So there are certainly other areas in phase 2 and 3 that we're definitely going to have the potential for more asbestos containing materials potentially. We do have a plan with the subcontractors already that roughly 5 weeks before we would think to shift phases, we're going to have them back out to do the reporting on the areas in phase 2 and phase 3, so that we can have, as soon as we're ready to move those departments from phase 1 and move on to phase 2, the day we're ready to start work on phase 2, we can have the abatement crews here immediately to minimize our schedule impact down the line. And the same for phase 3.
Right. So there's no way to do sample testing, for lack of a better word?
In theory, we could. We would just potentially be invading some areas that are still occupied by either employees or the public. So yeah, a logistical challenge there that we definitely looked into as a possibility, yes. But in terms of the core sampling that they have to do, we determined it would be best to kind of handle that by phase. So did our best to build a plan to get out in front of that as much as possible.
Awesome. Any other questions?
And probably why that is, the areas we're looking at is some of the, I'll call it insulation along the pipes up in the building, right? Remember for this building, right, for this construction, it was fine except for the elbows. The corners had asbestos in it. All the other insulation was fine. Or finding out some of the mastic underneath the carpeting. And as you've gone through, if you know, like there used to be courts upstairs, right? And they got rid of the courts that were upstairs and put different tiling down. The treasurer's office was different stuff. So that's the kind of stuff we're talking about, is that you might be like a little 10-foot per 10-foot area might be fine, but other areas might not be. So it's really getting down to the kind of the nitty gritty of, well, how much do you actually test? That's why if they're out of there, we can test everything right away. Don't go, okay, we tested here and here. Once you pull up the carpet and you can kind of see, oh, that area. So that's like makes it a little bit easier to do the testing.
Okay. Any other questions? Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Moving right along today. Okay, we're up to item F, project budget update.
Okay, so So I've put together this report. I'm not going to go through everything on here, but I put together the funding for the project. And to your earlier question, you can see the first item there, that's $627,000. That was money that was shifted from CIP projects that mostly were facilities, but there's also IT had a project to deliver new fiber to the highway department, which we opted to do as part of the parking lot project. So we've encompassed that into this project as well. So that totals 627,000. Exterior signage was one of those projects. We also had a generator project, a couple of other miscellaneous ones. If you're really interested, I could get you the full list of them, but those are the primary ones that were included there. We do have the borrowing money and then some interest on investments that are included in our budget for this project. The next section has two different sections, the committed spend. So this is very reportable. It's the items that are already in our accounting system. We are doing purchase orders for literally everything in this project. So it's enabling us to stay in front of what we're spending as opposed to trying to track contracts and invoices on the back end. We started doing that about a year ago, and it's really changed our ability to keep track of what we're doing. So what you see here is what we've got so far. So everything's got a PO. And then we've got pending invoices. The encumbrances are the POs that we have not charged against yet. And then we have open change orders. So as Steve mentioned, we have some that are closed. We have some that are open. The 45,000 have not hit our financial system yet, but we know that they are coming. So I've included that in that particular line item. And then the other side are the other projects that are kind of incorporated with this that we're still working on putting together. They don't fall under the GC's work. In some cases, they don't fall under our architect's work either, but they make sense. Like again, the exterior signage is outside of the scope for both of them, but we have to do that when we do this project. So that's why that falls into that kind of separate bucket of money there. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that and actually the next page, I do have our remaining contingency, and it's quite low. We have $166,846 remaining on contingency. So obviously we're going to need to be tracking that very closely with the pending charges for asbestos abatement potentially in phase 2 and phase 3. We're very conscious of that, and we'll be looking at things like the furniture number is still a big number. And do we have opportunities to shave some money out of those spends? And we did have a win on that. I was able to purchase some office furniture that we were going to need at a huge discount from JL earlier this year. It's about $80,000 worth of furniture, retail, minimally used, and I bought it for about 18,000. So we're going to continue to look for those opportunities as well to try to squeeze that budget a little bit. Yeah, we are absolutely reusing as much as we can. We're going with some cubicles, so that's where a lot of our change is going to come, is in the workstations that are cubicles. A lot in the Parks Department. They also have a lot of furniture over there that's really marginally usable. Dented fixtures, really makeshift desks that won't relocate easily. So.
Okay. Any questions? Well, that was easy.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the last item on our agenda. Does anybody have any final questions or anything to pose to Scott? Scott, did you have anything to add? Your overall view of the project, if anything?
I guess my thing would be, when would you like to meet again? Would it be, we were kind of meeting routinely, then obviously not for a while now. And now that we're actually into the construction, if you saw it upstairs, if you came in, you see they're actually constructing. I guess you want me to work with the chair to kind of monitor it? I mean, you are in the building about once a month only. If there's another big decision item coming up, we could certainly meet again. Every other month or every quarter. We're going all the way to next November. Remember, the completion date is next November. I don't want to bore you with meetings, but I know definitely there's something that needs to come up and discuss. You can tell we're gonna be bringing those things to you and towards you. So now the exterior work was a big kind of unknowns out there that we put a parking lot where an old highway shop was, and you can imagine when you dig up dirt from an old highway shop, that sometimes you find stuff you don't want to find. But inside a building here, now that we get through phase one, again, the company was Seltzer Orange who did this remodeling, right? So they're very familiar with the building. So we get a little bit further on, hopefully those unknowns are really mired up and we're on our way. So
What about like doing a tour? Is there any time that you'd want to, like during the construction, you'd want us to kind of walk the construction area? Or you want to wait till we get further along?
yeah, I think great. You wouldn't want to go now because it's just demo work.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's like
There's
you
nothing.
go in a room
nothing to
across the
see.
hallway, you can look inside going, yep, they got the ceiling tile down and not a lot going on, but I can work with the chair and discuss that and figure out when that might be a good time to start looking when the walls are up maybe, but the drywall's not on or something
Sure.
something of that nature. Then you can kind of visualize it a
Mhm.
little bit better. Might be a good time.
Yeah, if
Once all the
any-
drywall's up, it's up.
Yeah, right.
So, and then they're
Supervisor
quick.
Gallitz, June.
Mr. Schmidt, could you remind me when is phase two scheduled?
every one was about 4 months in length, correct? About March 1st.
So if we're kind of moving along with demo and finishing one and no known or no one unknowns, once phase two starts and a potential for some, review of whatever, and if we then need to make decisions such as if that contingency
Goes away.
fund starts to dwindle, then to me, it would make sense to meet sometime after that. But until then, it's a
It's just
operating-
going on. Yeah.
operating a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, maybe March then.
Okay.
Any other questions? What was that?
Yeah, no, March.
Oh, March, okay.
Yeah, I was thinking quarterly, seems like.
Sure.
Appropriate.
Yeah, I'm good with that too. So as we get closer to that time, we'll talk about it, Scott.
Yep.
All right, see no other questions. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Comment for you for public safety.